Hi everybody and welcome back to A Story of Light, a live stream musical journey in 19 days. Today is day 9 and if you've been watching over the past 8 days, thank you for following along this big journey with me. And if this is your first time watching, thanks for tuning in. You're very welcome. My name is Luke Slott and I'm a musician in Dublin. And I mainly focus on setting to music the Baha'i sacred writings. And for the first 19 days of March this year, I'm doing this series of daily live streams for about 15 to 20 minutes a day with a bit of storytelling and a song at the end here at AP Studios in Dublin. And this is all in preparation for the release of my upcoming album Home of Light, which is a collection of new songs based on the writings of Abdul-Baha. And if you're not familiar with Abdul-Baha, he was the son of Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, and he's really cherished as an example and a role model to Baha'is and friends around the world. And 2021 marks the centenary of his passing, hence the new album coming out later this year. So, as usual, all the previous episodes are linked below, so if you want to catch up on them at any time, you can always watch them in your own time. Today is the 9th day of the annual Baha'i fast, and this is episode 9 of A Story of Light. So, to pick up our story from yesterday, it was now the year 1863. It had been 10 years since Baha'u'llah and the family had been banished from Persia to Baghdad, and 7 years since Baha'u'llah had returned from his disappearance to the wilderness of Kurdistan. And those 7 years had really witnessed this outpouring of wisdom and guidance and leadership from Baha'u'llah that had really just brought this disheartened, distracted, chaotic Babi community back to life. And in God Passes By, Shoghi Effendi gives us a description of this resurrected Babi community. So, Antimo, can you put up the first slide, please? Thanks. So Shoghi Effendi tells us, a shepherdless community, subjected to a prolonged and tremendous strain from both within and without, and threatened with obliteration, had been resuscitated, and risen to an ascendancy without example in the course of its 20 years' history. Its foundations reinforced, its spirit exalted, its outlook transformed, its leadership safeguarded, its fundamentals restated, its prestige enhanced, its enemies discomfited, the hand of destiny was gradually preparing to launch it on a new phase. But in 1863, it suddenly seemed as if all this progress was going to be brought to naught. In the springtime of that year, when Baha'u'llah's fame was really spreading out far beyond the bounds of Baghdad, an imperial decree arrived from the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, Sultan Abdul Aziz, one of the most powerful, most corrupt and most despotic rulers of the time, ordering that Baha'u'llah and his family were to be permanently removed from Baghdad and summoned to the city of Constantinople, the capital of the Ottoman Empire. And of course, nothing could have been more disastrous for the Babis. The Bab had been killed, the promised one had not yet appeared, and their companion, Baha'u'llah, through the vitality of his leadership, his warmth towards the people, and the sheer creative power of his mind, had really become their one last hope. And so for the Babis, the removal of Baha'u'llah meant the removal of hope. But even beyond the Babis themselves, this crisis, this forced expulsion of Baha'u'llah from their city, actually broke the hearts of the people of Baghdad in general, because over the previous 7 years, Baha'u'llah had really become the single most outstanding contributor to the well-being of their city. He had become a kind of beacon of light, not only to his fellow Babis, but to people of all walks of life in Baghdad. And he had created such social cohesion that he had transformed their society, and the prospect of losing him really broke their hearts. But there was something deeper going on that was really at the root of their heartbreak, something that was beyond any concern for social harmony or societal stability. Something deeply personal had taken hold of the people of Baghdad, and that something was now being torn away from them. And I think that what happened was something like this. You know when you meet someone who becomes to you a source of wisdom and warmth and understanding, someone who who sees the truth of who you are clearly and actually honors the truth of who you are. You probably like that person a little bit. And if that person offers to you useful insights and tools that you can use to navigate through whatever challenges your life throws at you, you probably like that person a little bit more. And if that person somehow manages to bring out the best parts of you and actually empowers you to become a better person, well, you probably want to spend as much time as you possibly can in the presence of that person. And I think there's no better kind of friend than the friend who brings out the best in you. And I think this is what Baha'u'llah had done for the people of Baghdad. Essentially, he had become their friend. And in God Passes By, Shoghi Effendi gives us this beautiful description of the experience of the people of Baghdad during the time when Baha'u'llah was in their city. So, Antimo, can you put up the next slide, please? Many and moving are the testimonies of bystanders who were privileged to gaze on his countenance or overhear his remarks as he moved through the lanes and streets of the city. Of the mendicant, the sick, the aged, and the unfortunate, whom he succoured, healed, supported, and comforted. Of the merchant, the artisan, and the shopkeeper who supplied his daily needs. Of his adversaries, who were confounded or disarmed by the power of his utterance and the warmth of his love. So intoxicated were those who had quaffed from the cup of Baha'u'llah's presence, that in their eyes the palaces of kings appeared more ephemeral than a spider's web. And one prince who came to Baghdad and visited with Baha'u'llah several times made the following remark as an eyewitness. Antimo, can you put up the next slide, please? I know not how to explain it. Were all the sorrows of the world to be crowded into my heart, they would, I feel, all vanish when in the presence of Baha'u'llah. It is as if I had entered paradise itself. And so all of his social teachings aside, all of his beautiful poetic writings aside, it was actually the personal effect that Baha'u'llah had had on the individual lives of the people of Baghdad that had led to such heartbreak at the prospect of his departure. And in fact, one wealthy property owner in Baghdad was so saddened by what was happening and felt so powerless before the decree of the Sultan that he decided to provide for Baha'u'llah a large open-air space in the city so that he could say one last goodbye to the people of the city. And that space was a beautiful, finely cultivated rose garden by the river that runs through Baghdad, and which is today known as the Garden of Ridvan, the Garden of Paradise. And so when the day arrived for his departure, crowds had gathered in his neighbourhood to catch one last glimpse of Baha'u'llah as he stepped out of his house for the last time. And people had climbed up onto the rooftops, and children were running up to the doorway, pulling at his clothes, crying and begging him not to leave. And it seemed like the streets of Baghdad were flooded with tears. And Baha'u'llah called out to the people, and he told them that he would never forget them, and that he was entrusting into their hands the well-being of their city, and he invited them all to come and visit with him one last time in the Garden of Ridvan. And you can imagine how this garden must have looked. It was late April, it was the height of spring, the roses were in full blossom, The birds were singing, the lawns were vibrant green. And Baha'u'llah pitched a tent in this garden, and he stayed there for 12 days. He lived in this Garden of Ridvan so that the people of the city could come and say their last goodbye. But on the first of those 12 days, Baha'u'llah did something which, like an alchemical reaction, transmuted the heartbreak of the people into indescribable celebration. Standing amidst the roses in the Garden of Ridvan, he finally revealed this secret that he had kept in his heart for 10 long years, a secret which his now teenage son, Abdul Baha, through his own spiritual perception, had long since privately recognized. Baha'u'llah told the people that he was the one for whom the Bab had prepared the way. He was the promised one of all religions. And of course, the Babis were just turned upside down and inside out with a joy they could barely contain. This declaration of Baha'u'llah was like a bell ringing out inside their hearts. Him whom God will make manifest had not only appeared, but he had in fact been with them all along. And in God Passes By, Shoghi Effendi tells us the following. So, Antimo, can you put up the next slide, please? To Israel, he was neither more nor less than the incarnation of the everlasting Father, the Lord of hosts, come down with 10,000s of saints. To Christendom, Christ returned in the glory of the Father. To Shia Islam, the return of the Imam Hussein. To Sunni Islam, the descent of the Spirit of God, Jesus Christ. To the Zoroastrians, the promised Shah Bahram. To the Hindus, the reincarnation of Krishna. To the Buddhists, the fifth Buddha. And so the governor of Baghdad, wanting to thank Baha'u'llah for all that he had done for their city, decided to provide the family with an official government caravan full of horses and soldiers and all the provisions they needed to escort them to Constantinople in as honourable and as dignified a manner as possible. And so, with this new chapter opening up before them, the family set out in the greatest honour on the 1,000-mile journey to their second place of exile, Constantinople, the seat of the Sultan. And so for today's song, I'm going to sing for you some words of Baha'u'llah which describe the significance of the time in which we now live. So if you're fasting today, I wish you a very good fast, and I hope that you'll join me tomorrow for day 10 of A Story of Light. This song is called This Is the Day. This is the day, this is the day, where on the ocean of God's mercy hath been manifested unto men. This is the day, this is the day in which the day star of his loving kindness hath shed its radiance upon them. This the day, this is the day in which the clouds of his bountiful favor have overshadowed the whole of mankind. Now is the time to cheer and refresh the downcast through the invigorating breeze of love and fellowship and the living waters of friendliness and charity. This is the day in which mankind can behold the face and hear the voice of the promised one,